him, they continued to tase him and killed him. When my brother passed away, we didn't find out about it until the next day. I live in a different city, and the police officers from our city came to my parents' house and told my parents that my brother died in police custody. But that's all the information they had. They couldn't tell us how it happened. They didn't really even have as much information as to when it happened. And right after we found out, my parents did reach out to Williamson County and Travis County, because we didn't know exactly what county it happened in, and tried to get information. They even tried to go see the body and was not given any information on where he was at. And was just completely getting the runaround on getting information. When we finally did see him, it was the day before his funeral, which was like a week after. And they had released the body at that point. We asked numerous times for body cam, anything to see what happened, because it just felt weird that there was no information to give us. There's like, oh, he died in police custody, and that was it. Like, we were supposed to just take that and roll with it. Like, no, we needed to know how he died, what happened, what caused him to die. And it took 15 months before we were able to get any type of video. And that still didn't come from Williamson County. That came from APD body cam. And then we started hearing the back and forth from Williamson County saying, oh, nobody requested video from us. And then the Travis County DA saying that she did request it, and everyone was pointing fingers. This is 15 months after my brother has died. Our family had no closure. We still were questioning what happened. And then we bickering back and forth. Oh, it was your fault. No, your fault. You didn't ask. You didn't ask. This is a human life that was lost. And there's no compassion. There's no, let me do whatever I can to try to help you guys get closure. None of that. We didn't receive any of that. And then shortly afterwards, well, after we found out what happened to him, we found out that the same two deputies are still working. They're still patrolling the streets. And that another person, 3 months after my brother died, they tased and beat horribly the same two individuals using excessive force. And at my brother's case and at this person's case, Ramsey Mitchell, Live PD was on the scene for both of them. So we've come to find out, we didn't know when my brother first died that there was a TV show out there recording. We had no clue about any of that. This is all new to us. So we're like, okay, so that explains why they were in pursuit of him so bad, because they needed it for the show. That explains why, as he's begging you to save him, you choose to continue to tase him, because you need drama for your show. If you're any type of law enforcement, you are trained with emergency response. You are trained to see when somebody is not able to breathe. You are trained to see when somebody is near losing their life, and what you're supposed to do to try to help save them. And instead of doing that, no, they chose to break his finger and find joy in breaking somebody's finger because of a headlight. These are not human beings. There's no way as a human that you could feel that much hate towards another individual you don't even know. At this point, I feel like it was more out of power. Oh, I'm going to show you I'm the boss and I'm going to do whatever I want to you, and there's no repercussion, and I'm going to get away with it, and I'm going to do it to the next person. They literally killed him, and 3 months later did the same thing to somebody else. They could have killed that man as well, and they did not care. That is not the type of law enforcement that we need out on the streets. We cannot trust somebody like that. That puts more fear in your heart than it does trust with the law enforcement. And it's sad, because I know not all police officers are like this. There's so many that are so good, and they have so much passion for what they do, and they want to keep people safe, and they want to do the right thing. But these two individuals are not them. And the sheriff that they work for, he is just as bad, and to me, just as guilty. We've asked for Sheriff Chody to resign. He's not going to, but it's been asked. The commissioners, we had Terry Cook asked for him to resign. Cynthia Long asked for him to resign. Russ Bowles asked for him to resign. Valerie Covey, the statement was very emotional and we appreciate everything. However, she did not ask for him to resign. And I feel like she needs to jump on board with everybody else and ask that he resigns. And also the judge also needs to ask for him to resign, Bill Gravel, because being somebody in law enforcement in Williamson County, you should be proud of who you work with and who you work for. And there's no way anybody can be proud of the sheriff's office right now. The stories that we've heard come out of there are horrible. And it's not okay for people to have to live in fear about being pulled over. Don't drive through Williamson County at dark. That's not okay. It is 2020. Nobody should fear driving at nighttime through a county just because of the color of your skin. That is ridiculous and it's disgusting. So until you remove the so-called leaders that are okaying this and clean up what's going on in the sheriff's office, it's going to continue to happen until we make these deputies and hold them responsible for murder, because that's exactly what it was. It's a murder. You murdered Javier Ambler on March 28, 2019, and they thought they were going to get away with it, and they thought it was going to get swept underneath the rug and that nobody was going to hear about this story. And that is not the case. Because as long as I have breath in my body, I will make sure I continue to share my brother's story and get to as many people that can hear it and make sure that they share it and everyone continues sharing it, because they need to know what's going on, especially in your own backyard. You need to know that. So also there is different ways that we're asking the community to help. We have several social media platforms, all named Justice for Javier Ambler. We keep everything up to date on there. We have a website, also Justice for Javier Ambler. Everything's up to date on there as far as articles, what's going on with the case. And the best way to help, because everyone keeps asking, how do I help? How do I help? How do I help? My answer is to hold everyone accountable. The DA from Travis County and the DA from Williamson County are now working together on this case. Let's let them know, hey, we appreciate you guys working together on this case. Now, what are we doing to fix it? What are we doing to hold a grand jury? When do we plan on holding a grand jury? This has been 15 months. We need to put a little bit more speed behind it and get these two officers off of the street. Second, everything that we post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it needs to continue to be shared so people keep seeing it. That's the only way to keep this relevant. We have to keep all of these stories relevant. It can't just be hype for a week and then it dies off and then everyone forgets about this person. And unfortunately, the sad part about it is that until something's done, next week we might be saying justice for somebody else. The week after that, we might be saying justice for somebody else, because the officers continue to keep killing people with no reason. Having your headlights on should not be a reason that you die. And even if they say supposedly he didn't pull over and everything else, that's still not a reason for you to die. Arrest me, take me to jail. Do what you're supposed to do. Stop the chase, because it shouldn't have been a chase for having high beams on. Stop the chase. You have my license plate number. Put a warrant out for my arrest. Whatever it is that you're technically supposed to do, but excessive force for having your high beams on, that's the wrong answer. And no one was trained that way. That was a choice that they made because of live PD being there. So sharing the stories that we put out is so important to keep everybody up to date. And so many people don't know that this story even happened, and they need to know. And using hashtags, we have Justice for Javier Ambler hashtag. We have Stand with Javier Ambler hashtag. Just Javier Ambler hashtag. Those are ways to keep the stories together. People could look it up, see what happened, read everything. You need to be informed. So that's key, being informed of what's going on. Third, there's a commissioner's court every Tuesday at the Williamson County Courthouse. in Georgetown. At 9:30, they hold commissioner's court, and they allow you to come and speak, come and voice your opinion. You have a short window. So just make sure whatever it is that you're going to say, you get that out in that short amount of time. But if you're demanding justice for something, use your voice. That they give you that opportunity, but so many people don't even know. So we need people to come out and stand with us and support us and demand that there's justice for Javier and that these deputies are removed off of the street. Demand that Sheriff Chody does resign. Go out there and demand whatever it is that's going to help make Williamson County safe again. That's what you need to go out there and do. So every Tuesday, 9:30, the address is 710 Main Street in Georgetown at the courthouse. And all the commissioners are there. The judge is there. So they get to hear. The more they hear it, the more they realize this is real. It's not just another person dead. Like, this was a life. This is my brother. This is my only sibling. This is the only one I had. This is my mom and dad's only son. This is their firstborn child. My dad served 23 years in the Army. He served for this country, for his son to be taken away because somebody wanted to have a good TV show. My brother has children. All his sons don't have a father no more. They have nobody to help raise them and guide them and show them the right way to go. They have nobody to call when they want to talk about girls or teach me how to drive or any of that. All that was stolen from them by two deputies that are supposed to be here serving and protecting. And they took an oath to serve and protect and chose to be murderers and assault people because they can or they think they can. That's not okay. So a whole community lost somebody that is special to them. So at that day when they took my brother's life, he may not have meant anything to them, but for us, he was our world. He was everything. And it's like, so you sit back and you think, like, as you're continuously tasing this person and they're begging you to stop, do you think to yourself, like, dang, this man might belong to somebody. Someone out there might truly love him. Somebody out there might truly be hurt if he ends up losing his life because of the actions that I'm bringing upon him. At no point was that thought out. At no point did they believe him when he said he couldn't breathe. If someone tells you they can't breathe, that's not your choice to determine whether you think they're lying or not. You have to take their word for it, and you got to make sure that you try to help them the best way you can to make sure that they don't die. And in this case, obviously, he was telling the truth because he's not here with us no more because of these two deputies. So those are my main points that I needed to bring up today. And I just really appreciate the Austin Justice Coalition for allowing me to use this platform. I appreciate so much the help that we've received and the people that have reached out with supporting and understanding, trying to understand where we're coming from and just sympathizing with my family. And another thing I want to make sure everyone knows, voting is so important. You can't sit here and complain about who you have in office and not do anything about it. If you don't like who you have in office, you need to use your voice and vote. You need to research who you're voting for, make sure that the things that they want and the things that they want to achieve follow what you believe in and what you want. Don't just go down the list on the ballot and just say, oh, they're all Republican, I'm a Republican, or they're all Democrat, I'm a vote Democrat. No, because they may not believe in what you believe. You need to research who you're voting for so that you can make a change. So if you want to change, you need to be the change that you want. If not, we're going to continue to live in this chaotic, corrupt world that we're living in right now. So pretty much that was all I had. Justice for Javier Ambler. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms and get his story out and his word out. And I'm going to continue sharing and I'm going to continue advocating for my brother and making sure that justice is served. So I just want to thank you guys again.
Kim, thank you so much. And if people can see, I changed my my background to a cartoonified version of Javier that Jao Paulo, who is on our leadership team, made. And I've just removed myself because we want to center Javier and his family today. And since we have you and Miss Brenda and the family of Enrique may not be able to join us, I also want to take a few minutes, if you don't mind, and the other young lady that's with you, um, to just talk about and let people know who Javier was, right? Because we see the dreadful video that was out, that doesn't really let us know who Javier was. So as we have people today that are on the lake and enjoying their independence, if you all don't mind, let's just take a minute to talk about who Javier was and how we the community was robbed of even getting to know this man. So yeah, if you just want to take a minute for that.
Definitely whoever didn't get the opportunity to meet him was definitely robbed that opportunity. My brother was a social butterfly. Like, he can make a friend in any environment that he was in. He was hilarious. He always had jokes. He was an athlete. He loved sports. He loved Texas football. He was a UT fan. He was a Dallas Cowboys fan. You can never tell him that his Cowboys sucked. He was going to back them up 100%. I'm a Texans fan, so we would go back and forth all the time about that. He loved Texas. We were military brats, so we moved around a lot, but this was home for us. And you couldn't tell him he wasn't from here. He was born in Georgia, but he always says Georgia born, but Texas raised. And he loved being a Texan. We lived in Killeen, like I said, military brats. He went to Ellison High School. He played football for Ellison High School. He then got a scholarship and played football for Blinn Junior College. He loved football. It was a passion for him. Then he had left for a while and moved to Atlanta. After that, he came back to Texas, and that's when he moved to Austin. But he just had a lot of friends. Like, he loved poker. Poker was his thing. So he met a lot of people there. That's a lot of the people that are in the Austin community that reached out to me that I never met before. They're all his little poker buddies, and they all just miss him and love him so much. And I have met so many of them that just speak so highly of him. Within the last few years before he was taken from us, he really started getting into culinary, and I didn't even know he could cook, like, forever. And one day he was just like, I'm hosting at the poker place, wherever it was called. He was like, I'm gonna be catering for them. And I was like, you don't even know how to cook. And he was like, no, I really do. And like, everyone was talking about his food was amazing. And he was just really proud about like doing his own. He wanted to have his own business. And that was always his dream, to have his own business. And he just started catering like baby showers, and like this big old man that plays football is catering something so sensitive as a baby shower. And that's just because people saw his spirit. They saw who he was. They saw his passion. They saw how much he loved people, and he just loved being around people. He loved making you happy. He was such a giver. He would give you the shirt off of his back. Like, whatever it was, if you needed something, he's there. He's going to be there. He's going to find a way to be there. He might be late, but he's going to be there. Like, that's just the way he was. And that's the way we were raised. My parents raised us well. They raised us with manners. They raised us to use sir and ma'am in the right situation. They raised us to respect our elders and authority. And he stuck with that. And he passed it along to his children. Again, like I said, he was a father. His boys miss him terribly. His oldest just graduated from high school this year, and he was heartbroken. It was so hard for him to even get through high school because of this situation. And he was like, that was his goal. He wanted to graduate and wanted his dad to be there, and he wasn't able to because he was taken. His other boys, one of them wants to play football just so he could be like him. He's like, I want to play football so I could continue and be like my dad. I want to continue his legacy. His baby is so little. He doesn't understand what's going on. He tells his mom, could he write letters to God so that he could bring his daddy back? And could he write letters to God and let him know that he misses him? And he just, like, they had a bond that most men, unfortunately, nowadays don't have with their children. And he did. One of his friends said it best, that he wasn't a baby daddy. He was a father. He was a dad. He took care of his kids and he loved them. Um, his friends speak so highly of him. And he's had friends that we've had since we first moved to Texas back in the early 90s. And like I was telling them, I was like, I can't even think of anyone that has a negative thing to say about him. Like, oh, I didn't like him because there's nothing you could say. His personality was amazing. You know, he was a protector. We had a lot of women in our family, and for a long time he was the only boy, but he was the protector. He made sure that we got home okay. He made sure as soon as he walked in the house, if he just saw us, he gave us all hugs and he gave us a kiss on the forehead. The kiss on the forehead was his thing. Like every single time, it never failed. You would get a hug and a kiss on the forehead. We don't get that anymore. That was taken. We don't get to see his beautiful smile and his laugh, and it's just a lot.
Is there anything else? And I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Is there anything that you would like to add? Okay. So at this time, I'm just gonna put this picture up, and we're gonna take a minute of silence just to reflect and keep the name of Javier alive, and really just reflect on how much further we have to go as a society to make sure we don't have stuff like this going on. So we'll just take a minute of silence. All right, Chris, I'm gonna ask you to briefly talk about the Enrique case, as far as what we know from the public perspective, and then the Mike Ramos case, and then we'll come back and talk about some more stuff. So Chris Harris is a not only a friend of mine, but my brother in this movement as we fight for a better world, where we don't have police brutality and police violence. And just, a really good guy, extremely smart guy. So Chris, if you want to start with Enrique, I think that'd be a good place to start, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm sorry that some of his family couldn't join us here today. I understand they have a family emergency, and so they can't be here. I will not in any way pretend to represent them, but merely to relay the facts of the case that are known, as well as some of the things that they've passed along to me as far as things that would help. I also just want to again my condolences to the Ambler family, and thank you both for being here and your eloquence, and again, I'm so sorry for your loss. Enrique Quiroz is, an example of, really in a lot of ways, something similar to what the Ambler family was going through, 3 months after he had passed, which is that there's not really much known about what happened, and there's been no transparency about it either. We know from initial news reports that that they went to talk to Enrique, potentially to apprehend him. He to the police was non-compliant. They tased him. Initial reports also have paramedics injecting Enrique with something in order to sedate him. But we don't know to the extent that any of that occurred, and we don't have any video. We don't have an autopsy. We don't have any information really to confirm any of the initial reports, either from those that witnessed some of it or from the police. And so at this point, what we do know is that an unarmed father of 6 is dead. And honestly, that without the uprisings that have occurred, without all the attention that's been brought on to police violence and racial injustice in our country because of the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade and Elijah McClain and Mike Ramos and on, we likely wouldn't know the name Enrique Quiroz either. And so, I think that there's going to be, some further communication to everyone here very soon about all the various action items that can be taken to help support justice for all 3 of these cases. And I think in the case of Enrique Quiroz, the most important thing is transparency right now. We need to see, the public needs to see, the family needs to see, first and foremost, all the video footage that they have, both from body cameras as well as from dash cams or any other source that they have access to. We also, and again, the family first and foremost, need to see the toxicology report, the autopsy, to know what ultimately caused Enrique Quiroz's death. Was he injected with anything? Was it the tasings? What happened to him? How did this unarmed man, and why did this unarmed man die in police hands? And so I'm really hopeful that we can arrange another event with members of his family to help support their efforts in this regard. And like I said, I think we'll be sharing some additional information soon about how exactly we can go about pushing for the release of all that information.
Thank you, Chris. And just like we did with Javier, I'm gonna take. I think we should take another minute just to reflect on yet another life right here in our own backyard of somebody who was a victim of police violence and police brutality, very unnecessarily. So we'll just take a minute so people can look at this art that was made again by JP. And again, we'll just take a minute. All right, and Chris, if you want to, I know a case that you and I are more familiar with because we've been working with the family and the attorney for the family of Mike Ramos. If you can just remind people of, again, the atrocity that happened with that, and some of the problems that are still arising in that case. I think that'll be good. And then we can come back and talk about some next steps that hopefully everybody will join us in as we continue to pursue justice for these families and victims.
Sure. Well, so with Mike Ramos, we have something really critical that we didn't have in either of the other two cases, and that's civilian bystander video. People were there, people filmed it, and they released it publicly. And this is unfortunately the only way still that we're assured that we ever get to even know about these cases and really understand the extent to which when the police are at fault, the degree to which they are, and why it's so important for folks to continue to film whenever possible, because we see even in cases where they are likely wearing body cams. It's been 3 months and we haven't gotten it for Enrique Quiroz. It took 15 months to get it for Javier Ambler. And we wouldn't have it now necessarily, and we still don't have the body cam now public, despite a new APD policy that they're supposed to release it in 2 months. The only reason that we know definitively what happened to Mike Ramos is because people were there and they filmed it. And what we know is that again, he was unarmed, and that after being shot with a beanbag round, which the whole world has become much more familiar with because the police have used them so horrifically against protesters, he got into his vehicle, likely believing that he was shot. If you see the video, it's such a dramatic event, being shot by that beanbag round. He then he gets into his vehicle, which he was standing right outside of, very slowly, and begins to slowly drive away from the officers. And at that moment, he shot, I believe the records say 3 times, and killed. Subsequently confirmed he did not have a weapon. He was unarmed. There was no weapon in his car or drugs, which was the initial reason that the police were supposed to have been called to the scene. And so again, we have this, really horrific case of unnecessary brutality leading to a man's death. The other big piece of thing that we know right now is that the police who are responsible for Mike Ramos's death are still on paid administrative leave. And the reason is that the district attorney, Margaret Moore, has asked the police chief, Brian Manley, to not discipline them until she convenes a grand jury. Emails were released last week where she claimed that if the officer was fired in advance, or any of the officers were fired in advance of her convening a grand jury, that it would prejudice a jury, which is totally bogus. We've seen many instances where officers, not just here, but around the country, have been fired before being indicted. And if anything, that can help strengthen the case that they should be indicted, right? Because their own police department looked into the incident and decided that they should be disciplined, decided that they should be fired. So it makes no sense for why the district attorney is pushing not to have discipline. But at the end of the day, Brian Manley, the police chief, could still discipline them. He doesn't have to accept that request. He could still impose discipline today. And it's really clear that Mike Ramos should still be alive from the video that we have. And so it's, I think really important that that we continue to push for discipline, and not just here, but also I believe in the Javier Ambler case. As his family mentioned, the deputies involved have been involved in other incidents, and not just other misconduct or brutality incidents, but other incidents that were on live PD, that were literally on being filmed by a television show. And so, I think there's a lot more information to continue to be gleaned from Williamson County on that, but there's no doubt that discipline is warranted, and likely all of these officers should lose their jobs and should never be empowered to be police or law enforcement ever again. So the last thing I really want to say, and I'll leave it to Chaz, and we can talk through a little bit about next steps, but obviously it's July 4th, and I'm really just so moved to see so many folks giving up part of their day, even though I know it's quarantine and a lot of the parks are closed and gatherings above 10 people can't be had. But it's still a day that, as Chaz mentioned, many folks are using to rest, and for you all to be engaged to this degree, to be here today, and is really important, and it really just speaks volumes about how much people are moved by these times. I also think it's real important to, if really all the time, but especially today, to be thinking through, the stolen land on which we sit, and to be recognizing, right, like the kind of history of injustices that bind us on this place, right? Both from all the indigenous folks that were here before, to the founding fathers and legitimate grievances that they had, but then obviously also the injustices they imparted, both on indigenous people as well as on Black people, whom they enslaved, and whom the systems that they put in place still resonate today. And the police are a prime example of that, as well as the whole criminal legal system. So I hope that everyone can really be thinking about what freedom, what justice, what liberty really means to them in America today, and how we continue to be in struggle to fulfill the goals of folks who never lived up to their own ideals, and how we have to continue to struggle for those things, and that includes being in solidarity with people who are still being harmed and killed today by the state. Thank you very much for the time.
Chris, thank you so much. And again, we're going to take one last minute to just reflect on the life of Mike Ramos, who, again, and I hate to keep saying it, but just so senselessly taken from us, robbed from us as a community by the hands of APD. So we'll take one last minute, and then we'll talk about a little bit more in detail about why we're doing this event, things to consider, and next steps that we can all take to make sure we're doing our part in providing justice for these families. All right. So I mean, it's this is a very heavy conversation anytime we're talking about the fact that unarmed people were killed by police. It's never an easy thing to talk about. But it's something that we have to talk about because we can't sit idly by and not engage in the change that we seek. So again, I just want to thank everybody for being here on this lovely Saturday and leaning into this conversation. Something that I think is important to highlight while we are in a moment of uprising and a moment of challenging and critiquing our current systems that we have is that if you live in Austin, and we all know Austin has been deemed this liberal haven, Austin is this place where we keep it weird, and we have the tacos and we have the food and music capital of the world. I think this conversation that we're having on July 4th, in all the hypocrisy that comes with that, is very fitting to Austin, because one thing that all three of these cases have in common is that you don't have to go very far to be involved in this movement for a better world. And I think it's also very important, and forgive me if this is not coming off right or politically correct, as we fight for justice for Breonna Taylor, as we all should be. And Breonna Taylor was a Black woman that was killed by police, and her killers are still free. That's very much true and relevant in all three of these cases. Each of these men, Black men and men of color, all of the murderers are still working their jobs. And you look at Javier's case, that if we didn't see this video, maybe we never would have heard about it. We're going on 15 months, well over a year, of this footage being, tossed around like a hot potato, and it's finally coming to light. So as we fight for justice for, George Floyd, and we're seeing very incremental steps in that happening there, in Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, we must not and we cannot, and I would behoove you all to keep fighting for justice for each of these young men, because there has been very little to no strides towards justice for any of them. And I think that's really important to highlight, because I think in Austin, we think that we are better than, or we're more progressive than, or we're more liberal than the rest of the country. But if you can see my picture on the screen, that I believe you can, these are three examples, and only three examples, that show us that we are not quite there. So as we continue to fight and join the national conversation around police reform and police accountability, again, I urge you all not to forget about our own brothers, our own family members, our own community members that are no longer with us because of police violence and police brutality. And we can't, again, on a day where a large percentage of our white brothers and sisters are celebrating their Independence Day with hot dogs and whatever, I don't think it's quite right that we can do that, as we, again, look at these faces, although it's been modified in art form. We can't and we shouldn't get any rest until some part of justice, and not even some part, until all justice is rendered to us, the community, and us as a city of Austin. I think I also think it's very important for us to say that although we are the Austin Justice Coalition, we stand in full solidarity with the Justice for Javier Ambler And, just because we're the Austin Justice Coalition does not mean our justice and our fight for justice is confined to Travis County. We are going to use as much energy and time and capacity we have to assist the Javier family, the Ambler family, to make sure that, one, they know that we stand in complete solidarity with them, and we won't get any rest until justice is served in that case. And Kim, I just want you to know that, and your whole family, that we are here, and it sucks that we have to meet under these circumstances, but we are gonna fight until we win, and that's something that we do. I think it's also important to highlight, before I pass it back to Chris, and let you all enjoy the rest of your Saturday, that we're actively engaging in, nationally and locally, in this broad conversation around reimagining public safety. Again, when we look at all three of these cases, all three of these men were unarmed. They were not a threat to the officers. They were not a threat to anybody, but they're no longer with us, right? So we're engaging in this local and national conversation around defunding police, which means nothing more than taking some of our, eventually, hopefully, all of the resources that goes into the institution of policing and reallocating those funds to make sure we have alternatives to public safety, right? If when you look at Javier, who had a car issue, a traffic issue, why is it that we're sending somebody with a gun and this obsession with authority to handle that case? When you look at the case of Mike Ramos, a young man that had his hands up and no weapons, made it clear that he didn't have any weapons. Why was he shot with a quote unquote non-lethal round beanbag, and then literally moments later, shot with lethal force, and he's no longer with us? So we hope that you all take a second to, and I'll put the link in the chat. We have a tool that allows you to play city manager or city council member for a day, and lets you play with the city budget to show how you would reallocate funds from the police department and put them to other departments to make sure we're resulting true public safety results, in which there's an issue, there's a problem, and it can be resolved without the police needing to be there. And we know that in so many cases, right, when police show up, it's not a de-escalation. They automatically escalate the situation because they are armed, and they have again this very odd obsession with authority. And de-escalation to most police officers mean that you will comply. And it was so evident in the Mike Ramos video, where an officer told him to comply, or he's going to he's going to use force with him. And it was a very, very bizarre moment. He literally told him that I'm going to impact you. And nobody still to this day quite knows why that was said, or even what that means. So as we have this conversation, fighting for justice for not only Enrique, Javier, and Mike, we have to proactively think about how we can literally erase these type of situations from happening. There's no reason that unarmed people should be killed by police. There's no argument for that. Where I don't care if you're extremely left, extremely right, Republican or Democrat. You can't make it make sense to most logical people, humans in the world, why people that are unarmed and not a danger or immediate threat to anybody, when they engage or when they interact with police, they seem to not come out of these situations alive. So again, and I know Chris just put the tool in the chat, and we'll be sure to email it out to people that register for the event, and we'll put it on our Facebook and social media. We implore you all, as City Council gets ready to deliberate around budget discussions July 23rd, all the way up until September, October. We implore you to use your virtual voice and use this tool to show them what true participatory budgeting looks like, and also what true public safety looks like, right? When you look at the Austin police budget, for example, the police take up literally about 40% of general funds. They have a budget right now of about $440 million. Why is that important? As you look at the current global pandemic that we're in, and the ongoing need for public health resources and funds, Austin Public Health only has $85 million. And we wonder why our hospitals are full. We wonder why we don't have enough resources to help people that are not working at the time. We wonder why we don't have enough PPE to get to people that need them. It's because so much of our funds are going to the over policing and the militarization of our local police departments, and that is something that absolutely has to change. And we are living in a very, very unique opportunity and time, and we must seize that. We must seize this conversation around reimagining not only police, but really reimagining public safety and what public safety means to us as a community. So again, I really hope you all use that tool. Chris, I'm gonna let you close it out, and then we will follow back up with everybody with a conversation, hopefully with the Enrique family, with the Quiroz family and the Ramos family, to make sure people can hear from them. But Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Well, I just wanted to say thank you, first and foremost, to the Ambler family again for being here today. To Brenda Ramos, who's really just spoken so eloquently and been such an inspiration, and as well as to the Quiroz family, who've done a lot in organizing events, including a couple of mural unveilings that happened this week. And really, just my heart goes out to them and really all the other families that have been, impacted by police violence. And also to thank you, Chaz, for, everything that you do and putting together these spaces and creating these platforms and being an advocate for these families. I think, the Ambler family just shared a link here in the chat where you can go and see all of the things that they're really pushing for. I would encourage everybody to look into that and to do what they can with regard to signing petitions, calling folks, showing up to the county commissioner up in Williamson County, and really continuing to keep pressure on, particularly the sheriff's office for discipline as well as to resign, Sheriff Chody. And then, I think with respect to Enrique Quiroz, again, right now, really the main issue is just what we don't know. And so I think there'll be some follow-up with regard to whom to call and email to put pressure on, releasing information and videos so that the family can understand really what happened to him, and really try to move on, and obviously continue to seek justice for him. And then with Mike Ramos, we understand a lot of what happened. And so really what we need now is we need justice, and we need the officers in particular to be held accountable for what they've done. And so again, I think some additional information will be sent about how best you can contribute to those efforts. And again, just want to thank everyone who's come, and again, Chaz, for the opportunity, and hope to be see and work with all of y'all soon on continuing this push. And then last thing is the budget conversations, as Chaz was mentioning, the tool, the WeFund tool is there to help all of us, reimagine public safety. I think it's really important that, everyone engage with the conversations around funding. These issues and what happens with police violence is inevitably tied to the fact that we prioritize policing above all else, and we use policing to deal with every issue in our community. And I think we have to really start questioning the extent to which we need people who are authorized to use violence and coercion on behalf of the state to be involved in our lives and to be the people that we call for when we need help, and really to start thinking about how we can address the problems in our societies, whether it's poverty or homelessness, substance use issues, mental health, and do that in a way that doesn't involve people who are both trained and authorized to use state violence, because we see over and over again how that turns out. And the last thing I'll say is that when you look at the Declaration of Independence, the thing that we, ostensibly are celebrating here today on July 4th, that document is about the founding fathers breaking off from the British. It's about a list of grievances that they have with the standing government and why they feel justified to declare themselves an independent and free nation, and why, if you have enough injustices and it feels like you're living under oppression and despotism, you're justified in altering or abolishing the current form of government. And a couple of the grievances they have in particular are that the King of England at that time quarantined soldiers, armed troops in the colonies, right, in these communities. And when they killed people, they had show trials, and there was no justice. And so I think, in that respect, we can very much identify with what they went through, and we have to start thinking about how we seriously alter the structure and the government under which we live in a similar fashion. And so, again, I just want to thank everyone for their involvement and participation, and again, hope to see y'all soon.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And before we go, something that we try to practice at AJC is starting and ending with the voices that have been impacted the most. And then that, in this case, that is Kim, since she's still on the line. So Kim, I also got a few private questions. I think you're still here. Yeah. How can we help outside of, the fight for justice for Javier? Are there any things that the family needs, financially or just emotionally? Like, how can the community support you all at this time? Like, if you need a massage, if you need, a bottle of wine, how can we best help you all at this time as you grieve and try to move forward?
Well, I mean, that's really nice, but no, I think all of that, we have so much support from everyone so far, especially in our community that we live in. So it's greatly appreciated, but no, we're good with that. And what was the first question you asked me? I forgot already.
Yeah, so people were just asking what's the best way we can support you all,
Okay.
outside of the petitions and outside of, because it seems that, hopefully when the COVID numbers go down, we may have to just pack up our Austin community and make a little trip down to Williamson County and make some noise. So, outside of things like that, we just wanted to know how we all can help you.
Well, the main thing right now, like nothing personal, like you said, massages and wine and all that. Like we've had so many people ever since we found out, that he passed, showering us with gifts, and we really appreciate it. The main thing that we just really want is, like, we're having a caravan protest. We're trying to keep it safe because of COVID-19. I believe we have the date set for August 15th. Once we get more information out, we're definitely going to push it out on social media. So if we could get people to come out and support, and it's going to be safe, everyone can be in your vehicle, right on your car, have your poster boards, whatever it is, just to show support. And we're actually going to be in Williamson County. So that'd be a big support, is to have the numbers. We want the people to show, like, that we're being backed by several people in the community, that they also don't agree with what happened and they're supporting us. So that's like the main thing. And then just everything else that we're trying to do. I know COVID's kind of restricted people from go out and protest like we would like to. But once that's available and open for us again, we definitely going to be out there, Williamson County, Travis. I've been everywhere. I've been in Williamson County, I've been in Travis County protesting. And just to see more people come out and help us would be really good. A lot of people don't now, like, I'll go out and I have a shirt on that says Justice for Javier. They don't know who he is. They don't know what happened to him. So just to continue to get his story out there so that they know. And I think with the caravan and the protesting, and this definitely is going to help with that. So that's really just what I want help with.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you all for joining us. We will send out as much information we can as possible about all these as we continue to remind people about the own atrocities that we have in our own backyard. As we continue the national and global conversation around Black Lives Matter, we have to make sure that the Black lives closest to us matter as well. So again, thank you all. Kim and cousin, that's what they are calling you in the chat. Thank you so much for being with us. We are here if you need anything. Kim, you have my number.
I do.
And yeah, rest up over the weekend, everybody, and let's get to work. So
Right, thank you for having us.